He was a strong vigilant, but during the day, he acted like a pathetic nerd who hangs out with losers. One day, he goes to a destroyed city with his sister where he finds an immortal vampire queen, and, in the end, he manages to rizz up more girls than any protagonist in anime history. In a mansion, Beta announces that since the incident at the Bushin Festival, the cult of Diablos in the Migger Kingdom has shown no signs of conspicuous activity, and the smaller sects were at a standstill. Gamma tells Sid it is going exactly as they planned, and Epsilon adds that they can set their sights forward and focus their main efforts on the situation in the Oriana Kingdom. Ida reports that the flow of funds going into the lawless city has increased, and Epsilon explains that it's a giant slum where the evil, wealth and power of the world converge, so any tensions could have an immeasurable effect on the rest of society. Sid declares that he will handle this matter. The girls ask if he intends to go there alone, so he tells them to not be afraid since the moon has turned red. They wish him the best of luck and bow overdramatically, as Sid remarks that it's literally just a red moon and not a big deal. Two men arrive at the Crimson Tower, ruled by the Blood Queen, one of the three rulers of the lawless city. A wild-looking man declares that they are not worthy of passing through this gate, since the only ones permitted are servants or guests of the Blood Queen. The men cheerily say they're powerful warriors here to hunt the Blood Queen. Hearing this, the man starts chuckling and says it's always really amusing to find even bigger fools than him. He shows them his chopped-off arm and says this is what happens to the likes of them who dare to challenge the Blood Queen, revealing that he lost his arm and is now kept here as a pathetic watchdog on a leash.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
He says he was once known as the White Devil, a dangerous criminal, but here, he's nothing but a lowly gatekeeper who rips apart idiots like them. Later in the lawless city, Sid remarks that this is perfect since the lawless city is even more of a dump than he imagined. However, Claire tells him to stop gawking as she drags him through the streets. He remarks that Kajino Minoru, was following the road to become the Eminence in Shadow when it seemed like his journey came to an abrupt end. However, a lot of different stuff happened, and now here we are. His sister, Claire Kejino, won the Bushin Festival Championship, so he used his connections with Gamma to get her a fancy dinner. Sid's getting freaky here. However, Claire revealed that she was going to the lawless city to exterminate vampires and decided to bring him out of consideration for his future. Presently, she says she'll pray open a spot for him in Migger's Night Order after he graduates if he stays behind her and does as she says. Sid inwardly admits he hasn't really considered what he'll do after graduating since she'll inherit the estate out in the boondocks. He remarks that he doesn't care what job he's put in as long as he can do what he wants. Claire tells him to stop trying to hide the fact that he just hasn't thought about it and insists that it's not fine. A shopkeeper asks Claire to check out his new stock of new pets, and Sid sees that he's referring to male slaves. As the man tries to sell the slaves to Claire, Sid remarks that these guys look kind of similar. Later, Sid gets out of the inn for a moment and the men keep trying to pickpocket him, but he easily takes his stuff back as well as their wallets, remarking that it's a dog-eat-dog world, but he still can't believe he's making bank just by taking a stroll. As he's walking, he notices some men beating up a Gaul and sees that they must be punching bags around here, which is what he'd expect from a town drenched in blood and slaughter. The red moon appears in the sky and Sid notices a wave of magical energy spread in the town. The Gaul suddenly gets up and bites one of them, turning him into a Gaul as well. Sid says they'll just keep multiplying if he doesn't do anything, so wonders what act he should put up here. He decides to let things get a bit out of hand before stepping in, but a girl suddenly slashes through the Gauls' heads and introduces herself as Mary, the ancient vampire hunter. At the inn, Claire annoyingly sees that Sid isn't here and asks a man if he's seen a boy with black hair. In the pleasure district, two boys excitedly get ready, but ghouls suddenly appear behind them. Meanwhile, in a room, a girl wonders what's happening outside while she's trying to wallow in her misery. A gullish man slowly walks towards her, but Sid instantly cuts through him and tells her to run if she values her life because the frenzy has begun. She asks what his name is, so he introduces himself as Shadow, repeats the lines and swiftly disappears. A woman hurriedly asks the girl, Marie, if she's okay, and tells her that Shadow is the evil mastermind who had a field day beating up the corrupt clergy and is at least as dangerous as any of the rulers of this city. However, Marie mutters that he didn't seem like a bad man and quickly gets up, informing the woman that she's getting out of this town and thanking Shadow because just seeing a dude is enough to make you rethink your life choices. In her room at the inn, Claire tearfully apologizes to Sid for bringing to this awful town, but Mary appears behind her and says she met a man fitting her description a while back. She says she saw one boy smiling in front of the gulls, but Claire doesn't think that's him, so Mary says she saw another one as he was being taken away by the followers of the Blood Queen. She adds that he was taken to the Crimson Tower, the Blood Queen's castle, and the vampires wished to offer him as a sacrifice. She reveals that the Blood Queen has been asleep for 1,000 years, but they've kept that a secret and waited for the night that would give the vampires tremendous powers. The night the red moon would rise again. Claire suggests that since both their targets are the same, they should partner with each other, so she agrees and they start running. Things are getting a bit awkward here. As people around the city are trying to stop the goals, Sid effortlessly cuts through them and repeats the same lines. In the tower, a man says takeover of the city is going as planned, but they're meeting unexpected resistance in certain locations. Another guy mutters that they know who's behind that: Yukim, the spirit fox, ruler of the White Tower, and Juggernaut, the tyrant ruler of the Black Tower, but they'll let them play their games since they'll meet their end as soon as the Blood Queen is revived. However, his assistant informs him that there's someone else. As Yukim and Juggernaut are fighting, Sid, hovering in the air in front of the moon, remarks that someone somewhere might be trying to spin up a new tale, but he does not change. He only continues on his quest to become the ultimate cringe lord, aka the Eminence in Shadow. He lands in front of Juggernaut and Yukim and declares that he is Shadow. The White Devil watches Juggernaut and Yukim fighting and admits he could never hope to defeat them, even if he gave his absolute all, but Shadow suddenly lands in front of them. Juggernaut recognizes him as the boss of the Jang who wiped the floor with the snooty priests. He breaks the door to the tower and enters it as Yukim says she hopes they can be on friendly terms as well since Shadow saved some of her girls in the district. The White Devil notices that Shadow is a human and believes he's weaker than him, so he pounces forward to kill him, but Shadow instant cuts his body into several pieces. Andy repeats that the moon is red. Bro's really ripping off every cool line. As Beta is reading a book in the library, she wonders how the cult found the necessary knowledge to harness the demon's power. Claire and Mary suddenly crash, and seeing which, Beta wonders what she should do since she's supposed to clear all witnesses, but she doesn't think she can do that. She recognizes Claire and Marie says she seems human and they don't have the time to fight unnecessary battles. Beta introduces herself and says she was doing research on the possessed.
Oh shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper.
She reveals that she needs the blood of a progenitor vampire to confirm her hypothesis. Mary doesn't believe her, but Beta says she will stay out of their way. Claire tells Mary they don't have time and won't be able to save her brother if they take too long, catching Beta off guard. Number 6066 alarmingly asks if that's true, but Beta tells her to keep quiet, so Claire and Mary continue on their way. Beta reminds the girls that their mission is only to obtain the sample, since Lord Shadow will be the one who deals with the Blood Queen and will eliminate all problems, including the issues with the sacrifice. As Claire and Mary make their way through the tower, Claire says she was acting strange in front of Beta, almost as if she was taking the vampire's side, and asks what she's really after, so Mary says she's only after the Blood Queen. Claire tries to ask a bit more, but Mary says everyone has secrets and tells her to not pry before a wall in front of them is suddenly destroyed. Hiding behind a pillar, they watch Juggernaut wildly defeat the vampires, and Mary tells Claire one of the most powerful in Lola City, so they should wait until he's gone and try avoiding a fight here. However, Juggernaut suddenly appears in front of them. He punches Claire away before attacking Mary. Claire wearily gets up, muttering that he's the second person who's ever managed to hit her in the face. She shockingly sees that Mary has fatal injuries and hurriedly tries to heal her, but Mary says it's fine and asks her to let her suck her blood for a moment. She unexpectedly kisses Claire and sucks her blood, which heals all her injuries, surprising Claire, who seemed to be having a really good time. Okay, this and I might actually be peak. She starts fighting Juggernaut, but admits it's been so long that the blood isn't assimilating. As Juggernaut rushes forward and is about to finish them off, Claire inwardly apologizes to Sid, but Shadow suddenly kicks Juggernaut away and he flies out of the tower, questioning what he's doing. Mary apologizes to Claire for taking her blood, but Claire mutters that her secret is that she's a vampire, so Mary decides to tell her everything. She explains that over 1,000 years ago, it was the golden age for vampires, but times changed as humans learnt the weakness of vampires and the hunters became the hunted. During that time, the Blood Queen, Lady Elizabeth, was living among humans and gave up on drinking blood since she wanted to live in harmony. As her subject, Mary followed her example, so they gradually lost their powers but gained nothing in return. The ability to live under the light of the sun was gained by them, and they were able to live in a beautiful world filled with light, but that wasn't the case for Elizabeth, since the maddening thirst never left her, and when sunlight struck her body, it would burn hideously. Despite this, Elizabeth wanted to build a haven where humans and vampires could live together in happiness. However, then came the night once in 1,000 years when the red moon rose in the sky. Elizabeth was starving for blood, and Crimson gave her a single drop, after which her frenzy lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and the haven disappeared into a pile of rubble, with the 3 kingdoms having suffered catastrophic damage. Mary survived by lapping up the blood of the dead and went after Elizabeth, but by the time she was reunited with her, it was all over. Elizabeth declared that a mistake like this could never be repeated and stabbed herself in the heart. If she had been an ordinary vampire, she would have disintegrated immediately, but the queen never turned to ash, so all Mary could do was watch over her eternal slumber instead of just actually killing her. However, immediately after that, Crimson and his followers took Elizabeth from Mary, choosing to spare her life in the hope that she would join them by the next night. 1,000 years later, and now, he's attempting to use Elizabeth again for his ambition. Claire admits she's no better than her, revealing that she might be possessed and could one day become a monster, so she hopes she could help her brother achieve something before that happened and brought him here. She questions how she would apologize if anything happened to him. She asks Mary if the Haven can't be built again, but she says she doesn't want to repeat that same mistake, and she believes Elizabeth wants her final rest. However, Claire says it's too sad to let it end this way and suggests that they kick Crimson's butt and get Elizabeth back, so Mary thanks her and they shake hands. Sid excitedly enters the treasury and starts examining all the gold there before reminding himself that he has a boss battle coming up, and he's been showing up fashionably late so far, and that's getting old. He decides to go with a flashy entry this time, while Crimson tells Elizabeth's skeleton that she is still beautiful and asks her to return to life as he initiates the ceremony. However, Sid suddenly attacks him with a gigantic explosion, chopping his head off, and once again repeats his lines. Sid is surprised to see that the final boss isn't here either and wonders if this could be one of those events that has a focus on group battles instead. He decides to check underground just in case before going home with the gold. On the roof, Claire and Mary hurriedly look around for Sid, but Claire is suddenly stabbed by Elizabeth, who brings her body closer and starts sucking her blood. However, Beta swiftly cuts off her neck and makes her head explode, while the other members save Claire. They inform Beta that Claire is still breathing, by first aid won't be enough, as Beta sees that they won't be able to leave right now since their master hasn't revealed himself and probably has some higher priority, a grand purpose he must achieve first. She decides to finish this quickly and asks 6064 to keep taking care of Claire and tells 6066 to cover her as she rushes towards Elizabeth.
Okay.
As they're fighting Elizabeth, Mary mutters that it's no use since they are strong, but her lady has always been a slow riser due to low blood pressure. Juggernaut and Yukim arrive as well, but Elizabeth suddenly rains down a barrage of attacks on them all, and they're left wounded. Beta warily says Elizabeth has expended all her magical energy, but still isn't showing any signs of slowing down, so she's taking their blood to heal herself and make herself even more powerful. Beta is shocked to see that Elizabeth is controlling the blood of the demon. As the fungi start rapidly increasing on Claire's body, she suddenly wakes up in the nurse's office where a girl asks if she's heard of evolution. She tells Claire that the possessed and progenitor vampire blood is trying to adapt inside of her, and she has the right constitution, but she doesn't know how to control it, which makes it even more tragic. Thus, the blood in her body has gone berserk. She sees that it's time and starts leaving. Signs appear on Claire's hand, so the girl says those will teach her how to use her powers and introduces herself as Aurora before saying she is helping her because she is Shadows. Why is everyone in this universe freaky? Claire suddenly gets up and has changed her appearance, but she says it's the same as what Shadow does since she can alternate between different looks. She suddenly stops Elizabeth's blood attacks in mid-air and redirects them towards Elizabeth before declaring that she will show them the most almighty power in the world as a bonus. However, as she's about to use a spell, she realizes this body can't handle it and mutters that this is enough since she was only buying time until he arrived. She reverts to Claire as Shadow appears in front of them and declares that the hour of awakening has arrived. As he's fighting Elizabeth, Beta wonders why he's taking the time to entertain these blows when he's already within striking range and could take her out in a single attack. However, she suddenly realizes he's shielding them from the onslaught, knowing they're helpless against her. She happily keeps praising Shadow as he mutters that he can't afford to lose a single one, like he's playing Subway Surfers. She thinks he's talking about them when he's actually referring to the coins he's hidden using his ability. Shadow and Elizabeth start dueling in the air. As they're in the air, he tells Elizabeth today's game has gone on long enough, so she asks for his name. He says his name is Recovery Atomic and swiftly defeats her. Later, Juggernaut thinks it'd be fun to go pick a fight with Shadow. The next morning, as Claire and Mary say goodbye to each other, Sid remarks that there are afflictions out there that can't be cured, and his sister has got it bad, but he can't dismiss her pain because all children have walked the path at some point. Claire confesses to Sid that special powers have taken root in her left hand, and she has to solve the mystery of these powers, but Sid says he knows she'll be fine, and no matter what path he follows, he'll be behind her all the way. As the train starts moving, she asks him if he knows about Shadow, but doesn't say anything else, so Sid remarks that she has all kinds of trials and tribulation ahead of her. He admits this event ended well, but he was sadly not able to recover all the coins and there are only 500 left out of the 3,000 he was supposed to have. However, he says there are 2 towers still standing and the lawless city will stay here so he can just come back here whenever he's in financial strain. A group of bandits intimidate some girls and tell them a well-respected man, Garter, is behind them, declaring that everyone has a bad side. However, the girls say there's no use in telling them something they already know as the rest of Shadow Garden appears behind the man and takes them out. Alpha says the underworld players connected to the cult should start to show themselves now and sees that the war is about to begin. At school, Gally and Emo show Sid the new clothes they brought that will make women swoon over them, but they realize they're all just rip-offs because NPCs like them always get scammed. Sid remarks that everything he's wearing is like a knock-off from his past life and believes this was Alpha's doing, but he says this is all going to end today and declares he's going to reclaim what's his, all of it. Later, he dresses up as a super-secret elite agent. Yuki meets Shadow, but he says he's forsaken that name, so she remembers that he's John Smith now and admits it is truly heartening to have him kindly joining his ranks. She reveals that Garter recently called a meeting of the major corporate alliance about strengthening their measures against Mitsugashi. She tells Shadow they will need him to take action, but warns that behind the major corporate alliance, he'll find Hem, the underworld swordsman who rose above Garter and took control of the MCA, getting the Sword Devil. As Shadow is leaving the carriage, she says she looks forward to seeing who will remain standing in the end. Shadow declares that he will destroy it all and then build it up again. The next day, Sid remarks that Alpha and the girls have gone too far since they're selling exclusive products with no concern for local distributors and have made enemies of the big corporations as well as the downtown shopping district. Thus, they will crush Mitsugoshi for him, and he will crush them in turn by using the massive amounts of capital to move to a brand new market and set up a new corporation. Imu shows him that Mitsugoshi and MCA have their own banks and currency too, surprising Sid, who remembers telling girls some random facts he saw in a documentary about banks. He's surprised to see that the girls established their own bank and managed to issue their own currency with just that. Sid notices that the design of the MEHA bank's note is much cruder and simpler, so he suddenly realizes something and starts running as Amo chases after him. Later, Sid tells Yukim that the bank is using the coins deposited at their vaults as collateral to lend out even more money. The bank met the demand of the merchants by supplying paper money, which spread like wildfire, further obscuring the currency's true value. Through this, Mitsugashi gained exponential profits by reaping the rewards of the interest. He points out that the MCA notes are much simpler in design, so they'd be easy to fake, and that way, they can make a fortune in counterfeit bills. She mutters that if they start doing this on a large scale, people would start dotting their own wallets and rush to exchange them for gold so they can make their profit through that. After intimidating her a bit, Shadow agrees and leaves the carriage as she realizes he was trying to test her sincerity. As Sid is eating at a restaurant, he sees Delta sitting beside him on the ground and wonders what she's doing. He starts carrying her and asks what she's doing in the capital, so she says she was hunting because Alpha told her to. She reveals that she's been hunting bandits. She asks if he wants to hunt with her, but he reminds her that Alpha would want to see her, but she tearfully says she wants to do the bandit hunt. Garter tells Getten that Mitsugoshi's private forces are stronger than expected, so he says he'll send the Clovers next, the elite assassins he handpicked himself, so that they can find Mitsugashi's secrets. As Delta is wildly slashing through the bandits, Sid collects the money, but one guy suddenly stops Delta and says he's her brother, Zabra, and calls her Sarah. He asks her to let him go since he's working for the Great Getten right now, but she instantly stabs him through his chest and says she doesn't want a weak sibling. Sid asks if she's sure that's okay, so she reveals that her dad is chief of the clan with lots of lovers and thousands of children, so Sid understands that it won't matter to him much then. Her dad is the true Giga Chad of this story. Delta suggests that he should become their next chief, but he mutters that that's not happening. Meanwhile, Garter informs Getten that Zabra has also been defeated and admits their numbers have practically been reduced to nothing these last few months, so it could affect the personnel running their enterprises if this keeps going. He's about to suggest something, but Getten reminds him of what his purpose is, to only follow his orders. He gets up, saying Zabra was the weakest of the Clovers, so he should summon the 3 that are left to strengthen their offense against Mitsugashi and take their trade secrets. He admits they're much stronger than he'd thought and understands why the cult labeled them a threat. Gamma tells Alpha that they are succeeding in minimizing the attacks against their transport trains as well as dominating the marketplace, while the MCA lacks the wisdom of the shadows, so they will be crushed under the weight of their own ambition. They decide to refrain from any brash behavior that could get people to link Mitsugashi and Shadow Garden before they're informed that they have guests. Gamma decides to handle it and Alpha sends 2 others with her. As the three Clover assassins get ready to go in and find a woman named Luna, Gamma smilingly approaches them and introduces herself. Her two guards instantly take down two of the Clovers, but the remaining man declares that no one who has engaged him in battle has come out unscathed. He manages to land hits on Gamma, but they don't affect her at all, and he's shocked by how easily she recognizes his fighting style. However, she keeps using magic energy excessively, so he realizes she's an amateur. Gamma remembers how Sid told her that her stats were ridiculously high, so she should just use as much magic energy as possible, and keep hacking away, so she's just using an old video game strategy. Presently, as Gamma continues destroying the corridor around them, the man is shocked by her power level. When he sees the two unconscious Clovers, he hurriedly decides to run away, but Gamma throws her stick towards him and it accidentally gets lodged in his neck, causing it to explode and take him out. Later, Gettin mutters that he would have liked to use some of the children, but the cult is running low on resources as well. However, this is exactly why this is the perfect opportunity for him to demonstrate his power. The MCA is nothing but a disposable pawn, so he only needs them to stay afloat for a while longer as he makes his preparations. After practicing with Sid for a bit, Alexia mutters that this isn't enough and she needs more power on top of all the other things she's lacking, and since while they lead their everyday lives, the world keeps moving forward, and if she doesn't move with it, she'll be left behind. She says being so carefree must be nice and sincerely hopes he stays that way. As Sid, dressed as John Smith, is sitting at a stall, a girl sits next to him and informs him that production is complete. Later, Yukim shows John how their entire production is done and asks what he thinks of the final product, since she believes it's quite good. John is easily able to tell the minute differences, but he's surprised to see that the one he thought was fake was actually real. He says they surpassed it to such a degree that it's better than the original one, but says they won't need to start working on it from scratch since no one else will be able to tell the difference. She says it is up to him to handle the situation after production is complete, but Gettin is hers, revealing that he took her mother, her friends, and her entire village from her, so it's her turn to steal everything from him. Gamma informs Alpha that counterfeit bills are bills in the market, but they haven't determined where they're coming from, and the MCA don't seem to have realized it yet. Surprised, Alpha wonders if it was MCA's plan to bring about a paper downfall, even though it would result in them losing as well. She tells Gamma that finding out where these are coming from is their top priority, so she agrees. Upon learning about the counterfeit bill, Gettin orders Garter to find out where it came from and remarks that if the world were to learn of its existence, every citizen would be harboring doubts and will fear that even the paper in their own wallets is nothing more than paper. He remarks that this is why they had been preparing to circulate their own counterfeit bills to bankrupt the MCA in Mitsugashi. That was the mission given to him by the cult. However, the plan wasn't supposed to go into effect until after they had recovered all the cult assets hidden in the MCA, and it should take time to find and retrieve them. If they sit back and watch as the counterfeit bills go into circulation, the cult could end up losing enormous amounts of money, so he frustratingly wonders what's happening. Shadow Garden agents infiltrate the train they believe is carrying the money, but two of them are suddenly caught in a trap as John Smith asks if he can see their tickets. The agents realize the thread binding them is unbreakable and magically reinforced, so 666, who is the only one who wasn't trapped, asks who he is. She rushes forward to attack him, but John swiftly traps her too, and says she's too inexperienced to risk it all on a single attack, even if she made the correct choice by eliminating the distance between them. He says he knew they would be the first to figure it out, but this is too soon, so he swiftly throws them out the train window like trash. As they land, 6066 wants to go after him again, but her leader says it's over since if they go after him without a plan, they'll fall into the exact same trap and get their butts kicked this time as well. They decide to go back and report to Gamma as 6066 thinks about John's powers and questions why she's so weak. Alpha is surprised to hear 3 of the elite numbers were overpowered and admits she hasn't heard the name John Smith before. 66 bursts out that he's leagues above most skilled fighters, and it felt like he could predict their every move. She hurriedly asks Alpha to let her face him again, but the other girls quickly take her out of the room and bid Alpha a good night. Alpha tells Gamma she's assigned Zeta to the search for what they discussed, but the cult seems to be putting up some heavy resistance, so she hopes they can put an end to this quickly and take some time to relax together. As John is sitting on the train, he notices something running beside it before Delta suddenly smashes through the windows. They start fighting and Delta destroys the roof of the train to stop him from using his threads, but he still swiftly traps her in the rubble and is about to repeat his edgy lines, but Delta sniffs him and happily jumps into his arms. Recognizing him, she's surprised to see that he's John Smith and says she's going to report this to Alpha, but John says he's in the middle of a secret mission that can only be accomplished by a super secret elite agent. He mutters that if she reports this to Alpha, his plan might end in failure because it won't be a secret anymore, so he needs her to not report this. He reminds her that any mission he gives her takes priority over Alpha's orders and confirms that she really won't get mad before saying he'll give her something as a reward once she's finished the mission. He explains that if she goes straight from here, she'll find a place called the Lawless City, and there's a black tower with a big guy named Juggernaut there, so she should go find him. She happily agrees and rushes off. Later, Gamma tells Alpha that they found the remnants of a large battle and found traces of Delta, so she tearfully mutters that Delta never defied their orders. Alpha asks her to try to find her body. Gamma adds that the amount of counterfeit bills in the market is increasing, and at this rate, the citizens will begin to doubt the value of paper money, and the wave of redemption will rain down on everyone, including Mitsugoshi, so they urgently need a plan to eliminate John Smith. Alpha mutters that this isn't just a shallow attempt to take them down. It seems that while they were fighting the MCA, John Smith intentionally sparked a crisis to bankrupt both Mitsugoshi and MCA and take everything for himself. Gatton is informed that the cult is highly concerned about the current state of affairs, so if these counterfeit bills continue to circulate, the cult will suffer severe losses. Gatton swiftly chops off the heads of the men who came to inform him and orders Garter to do whatever he must to find the source of these counterfeit bills. In the city, Alexia runs into Iris and reveals that the library in the school hasn't been rebuilt yet, so she thought it'd be easier to find specialized books in the palace archives. Iris asks if she's going to give up the sword and become a scholar, but Alexia says this is to help her know where to wield her sword, since she's realized she'll always be an outsider if she randomly keeps swinging around her swords. As she's speaking, Iris silently walks past her. Meanwhile, Beta informs Shadow that rumors of the counterfeit bills are already beginning to spread in the royal capital, so they believe the royal family will be forced to take action. She sees that he's taking the notes and continues that because these circumstances can easily lead to inflation, it has already reached a point that it must be addressed at a state level. He mutters that it doesn't make any sense, so she asks if there's a mistake in her report, but he says they should just proceed as they have been. She nervously reveals that they sent Delta to deal with John Smith, but have lost all contact with her as a result, so they believe she might have been killed in action. However, Shadow hurriedly says Delta has merely gone somewhere far away. She admits John is a highly skilled fighter and asks if he would fight him, but he says he has other matters to attend to. As Shadow gets up to leave, Beta reminds him that they have to destroy documents without delay. However, Shadow tells her to read it, and she's shocked by how complex the code is because he's basically a cult leader who's manipulating his minions. He says this uses 5 different languages that he developed independently and agrees to teach her if she can decipher the meaning of this text. Later on, the train, John is informed that they're reaching the MCA checkpoint. 2 men have set up a barricade of sorts to stop the train and start arguing when the train suddenly rushes past them. The man says they're going to go into hiding and might survive if they're lucky. As the train is going, Alpha suddenly appears above it and tells John it's a pleasure to meet him. As they start fighting, Alpha recognizes his fighting techniques and questions why he would do this, calling him Shadow. He says he has forsaken that name and admits he sent Delta to a far-off place. She frustratingly says she wants to be there for him, to support him, but she questions if this means he doesn't need her anymore, so John says they'll all understand that this was the right choice once it's over. She declares that she won't drag him down and starts fighting him. However, Shadow manages to defeat her, and she warily asks him to not leave her as she lands on the tracks. Yukim tells John that they have exchanged all their paper money for the gold, so the coffers of MCA may as well be empty at this point, and the only thing that remains is to cash the authentic banknotes where the public can see, and the MCA will be finished. In time, the issue will spread to Mitsugoshi as well, and they too will not have the funds to exchange all the bills circulating in the marketplace, and the government will have its hands full as it attempts to quell the chaos. That will be their chance to destroy all the evidence and vanish without a trace. She admits they never could have succeeded in this plan without his help. She reveals that when she was young, she lived in her village with her mother. The powerful clans were in constant conflict to claim the crown of a great hero, and the weaker clans like her Spirit Fox clan were at their mercy. In their quest for mercy, they attempted to deepen their clans with the like-minded clans whom they were allied with. The powerful clan of the Great Wolves and the wise clan of the Spirit Foxes were chosen to marry in order to strengthen their alliance. She, the daughter of the only Spirit Fox to have 3 tails, and Getten, the son of the Great Wolves patriarch, were chosen. They both had love and respect for each other, and it was a happy time, but then strife broke out between the 2 clans. Their village was caught in the crossfire and destroyed, and the wisdom and strength of the lesser clans amounted to nothing more than helplessness. Getten revealed that he was the one who had caused all this and killed Yukim's mother. He told her to pledge fealty to the cult and accept their power for herself, and attacked her as well when she refused, repeating that if he doesn't take from them, they will take from her. After that, Getten became Yukim's solo arch nemesis. She ended up as a prostitute on the battlefield, but she needed wealth and power, so she used everything she possibly could until she found herself in the lawless city and climbed to the top. She declares that her true objective is to not build herself a fortune, it's to find Getten and take everything he's built up for himself. She says she's going to settle this once and for all and hopes he will wait for her return, trusting in her success.